All right, so welcome everyone to the Crypto Valley Association. We're actually one of the working groups. My name is Maria Fedak, and I am co-chair on the CVA Compliance Working Group. And the CVA is the Crypto Valley Association. We're the leading voice for advancing in the global blockchain economy. I will just let you know a bit more about the CVA before we jump into today's topic. So what is the CVA? For those of you who actually don't know about the Crypto Valley Association, it's Switzerland's leading blockchain and crypto ecosystem. We have moved now out a bit of Switzerland. We have several working groups in Latin America, in the MENA region, and in other parts of the world. We're fostering growth, collaboration, and integrity in the global blockchain economy since 2017. And we unite the world's top blockchain and crypto professionals and companies. Together, we work to thrive growth, collaboration, and integrity across the global blockchain economy. We have several events which you can attend to, and you can also be part of one of these working groups and help us move forward into the crypto and blockchain ecosystem. Our mission is to connect blockchain technology by connecting a vast network of crypto professionals. We want to collaborate within the crypto professionals and blockchain experts so that we can collaborate with each other. We advocate for organization for the global crypto ecosystem. We facilitate and shape the conversation with regulators and government organizations. We're also making sure that we help out we work closely with governmental organizations to help shape the crypto ecosystem and the crypto regulations, especially if there is something that might harm the market. We're very on top of it. We're committed to shaping the future of blockchain and crypto innovation by bringing together the best and brightest visionaries, leaders, and businesses. And this is actually why we're here today. We have 11 working groups, and today you are receiving information from the AML and compliance working group, and we're very excited about this topic. So let me just jump into the topic. Just to give you kind of like a quick teaser on what we're going to talk about today is basically from my experience and from the experience I've heard within the AML and compliance working group is that there are several trouble rule challenges we find within the VASPs. So the first one is actually getting into the identity. So identifying and verifying customers in a decentralized environment, because blockchain, we're basically moving into a decentralized environment and it's very difficult to identify properly. Then we have some data privacy issues where it's very important to find the balance between the compliance and travel rule requirements with the privacy laws like GDPR in Europe. And this is one of the biggest challenges we have seen companies face with right now. We also have some challenges in the transaction monitoring. We're integrating the travel rule into compliance and into the existing transaction monitoring softwares. It's not very easy, which is why I am so excited about what we're going to hear today from our panelists. And regulatory variability is different countries have different variations in travel rule implementations. And most of the VASPs actually now have to comply with different regulations all over the world if they want to go internationally. So who are we today? Today, I am Maria Fedak. I am part of the Crypto Valley Association as co-chair in the Compliance and AML Working Group. We're 3 co-chairs and we're very excited to be here today. Then we have Laura Hildebrandt. She has 10-year experience in financial services across compliance and internal audits. For the past 8 years, she has been working with Coinbase. She has supported financial crime compliance, leading the Trouble Rule program, AML advisory, and the development on the implementation of Trust. And Trust is the Trouble Rule Universal Solution technology, which is exactly what she will be talking to us today. She will give us a quick peek into Trust and show us how security share travel rule information, how you can securely share travel rule information with other VASPs by providing an interoperable, user-friendly platform. So thank you, Laura, for being here today. We're very excited to hear about trust and to hear about your experience. And we also have Hannah Zacharias. She's head of regulatory affairs at 21 Analytics. Hannah has experience in international crypto experience. She has worked at a leading Nordic crypto exchange, was a DLT talent at Frankfurt School of Blockchain, and she has supported financial crime compliance, leading the travel rule program, AML advisory, and the development. Sorry. She was a DLT talent at Frankfurt School Blockchain Center and volunteers as Secretary General at the Digital Asset Task Force. Hannah, if you can also tell us a bit about that, that would be amazing if you have a little bit time left. That's very interesting. Within the global coalition to fight financial crime. She currently leads the growth and regulatory engagement efforts at 21 Analytics. And Hannah will give us a quick demo on 21 Analytics and will show us how they have managed to help several VASPs implement compliant GDPR travel rule solutions all over the world. I am very excited to hear about you, and I will give you now the option to share your screen. We will start with Laura, and then we will move over to Hannah. Thank you so much. If you have any questions, please write them in the chat. We will be looking at the chat several times during the webinar. So whenever you have questions, just write them in the chat and we will go through them during the webinar. Thank you. And Laura, the floor is yours.
Awesome. Thanks, Maria. Pull up my screen. Excellent. Well, hello, everyone. As Maria mentioned, my name is Laura Hildebrandt, and I work at Coinbase on the financial crimes compliance team. I've been at Coinbase actually 8 years to the day, where I lead AML advisory as well as the development of our travel rule solution, Trust. So this is a topic that is near and dear to my heart. I know travel rule is a fun but challenging topic for us all. So introducing the Trust solution, as Maria mentioned, it stands for the Travel Rule Universal Solution Technology, quite a mouthful. So we went with the fun abbreviation Trust. And really what Trust is a coalition-based solution of leading VASPs in the crypto industry. So although I work for Coinbase, the Trust solution is not a Coinbase product. It's not a standard travel rule vendor solution. Really what it is an industry coalition of exchanges that came together about 5 years ago to collaborate to build our own industry-led solution that really prioritizes data security and privacy. So just as the banking industry about 50 years ago came together to build the SWIFT network to exchange transactions internationally, we have very much modeled the design of Trust around SWIFT. So just as SWIFT came together to help international organizations exchange payments in a secure way, 50 years later, that is very much what we are looking to do in the crypto ecosystem. So really important to highlight that really Trust was designed by the industry and for the industry. Back in 2019, both the FATF and FinCEN and other regulators, including in Switzerland, were really focused on how can the industry come into compliance with the travel rule. I think there was a lot of discussion by exchanges at the time highlighting, as Maria did, all of the challenges that really apply to travel rule in the crypto space because of the nuances of how crypto networks are designed. So because they are decentralized, permissionless, open networks, it's very different than the way banks are moving money on essentially closed private networks all around the world. And so we really set out at the time to look at the travel rule vendor landscape to see, could we as an industry align on implementing a specific solution that really met both our compliance needs, but also our data security and privacy requirements. Because as Maria mentioned, that is really a top priority when looking at how to choose a specific travel rule provider to implement. So at the time, we really didn't find that there were vendors on the market that met our security and privacy needs. And so we decided to collectively build our own solution. Obviously not for the faint of heart. This has been, a lot of work and effort has gone into designing this. We decided to do it together because ultimately travel rule requires cooperation by your counterparties. You need to be on the same system in order to actually not just identify which blockchain wallets they're using, but then have a secure way to exchange the information with one another. So at the time, Coinbase and a number of other leading exchanges, Kraken, Gemini, Fidelity, and several others, collaborated as a working group to design what we thought would be a reliable way to identify one another and exchange travel rule information. That led us into building what is now Trust. And some of the really key features that are important to highlight is we built this as a not-for-profit initiative. I think for all of us, we were really interested in how can we design a solution that allows us to meet our compliance needs without sacrificing the very important data security and privacy that is needed to protect our customer information. We also wanted to design a solution that was accessible to VASPs of all sizes. Again, at the end of the day, in order to be a successful solution, you need to have as many of your counterparties on a particular solution as possible. And therefore, we wanted to ensure that things like cost were not a barrier to have members join us. We also built in very robust data security and privacy standards. As I've mentioned, we looked at travel rule as, how do we minimize the exposure risks for our very sensitive customer PII data? Because travel rule requires us to share this information with other exchanges all around the world with different privacy requirements in their respective jurisdictions. We wanted to establish kind of common global standards for trust to ensure that when we're sending our very sensitive customer information, that the counterparty on the other side has a way to appropriately safeguard it, and really looking at how we could minimize the centralization of travel rule information itself, which I'll touch upon later in the deck. And then finally, really what I call the secret sauce of trust is the way that we've designed in order to actually identify the counterparty. As Maria highlighted, this is often probably the biggest challenge in the crypto space. Customers are accustomed to coming to your exchange and saying, here's the crypto wallet address that I want to send to. As a financial institution, having to figure out who actually controls that wallet address. Is it a self-hosted wallet? Is it held by another exchange in another country? That's ultimately one of the most difficult considerations of being able to comply with the travel rule. And so the way that we've approached this from a trust perspective allows a sending VASP to be 100% confident that they are sending the travel rule information to the right counterparty. So because we really designed trust from an industry-led perspective, really by VASPs and for VASPs, we feel that we've been very successful in growing what has become one of the most extensive coverage networks of any travel rule solution on the market. Here you can see our membership. As I mentioned, we have VASPs from all around the world that are a part of Trust. Although we originally started the working group in the United States, we very much designed Trust to be a global solution. Ultimately, travel rule is a global requirement. We've obviously seen over the past 5 years since we initially built Trust, travel rule be rolled out in a number of different jurisdictions. So today we have over 170 members, which are financial institutions that operate across 33 different jurisdictions. We have members in both the US, all across Europe, both in the UK and across the EU, in Singapore, Japan, Canada, Bermuda, etc. So really wanting to enable VASPs to have a solution that they can use across all the different legal entities that they operate in, all the different countries, to ensure that they have a single solution that allows them to comply with requirements in any country. As Maria mentioned, there are different requirements in different countries. That's also what makes travel rules so much fun. There are different thresholds, different data points that are required, different expectations around how the data is actually sent, when it's sent. And so we had to design trust in a way that was flexible enough to allow for VASPs to meet their requirements in any and all jurisdictions. You can also see here just an overview of some of our largest members. So again, Coinbase, Kraken, Robinhood, Revolut, Gemini, Circle, Cash App, Crypto.com. The list goes on and on. Really not just a large number of organizations, but many of the largest crypto exchanges and VASPs from all around the world. We've also attracted more traditional financial institutions into trust. So we've had a number of large banks join us, including BNY, Bank of New York Mellon, as well as players like Fidelity and PayPal. So really just a great endorsement from the traditional financial institutions as well, that they believe that the security and privacy protections that we've built into trust are important to them, and that's why they've ultimately decided to leverage the trust solution. Really just want to emphasize here that, in just a few years between 2020 and now, we've really moved the industry from essentially zero travel rule compliance to very substantial travel rule compliance, where we're able to exchange securely travel rule information all around the world. Really, that's to us no small feat. If you can imagine how difficult it is to negotiate and build a complex tool with just one of your competitor firms, let alone doing this with dozens of other companies, I think ultimately what that allowed us to do was to leverage really the intellectual brain power from the best engineers in the crypto industry, the best lawyers, compliance professionals, and collectively design a solution that will work for the entire industry. Jumping ahead here, so as Maria touched upon, these are some of the core challenges that we as an industry face when applying the travel rule to crypto. As I mentioned, the counterparty identification is often one of the most difficult challenges, and there's a variety of different ways to go about solving for this. And on the next slide, I'll talk a bit more about how trust does it. The next piece was the actual data transmission. So once you can actually figure out, if you can figure out who your counterparty is, having a secure mechanism to actually share that information. At the time that we built trust, there really was no infrastructure across the industry to securely share travel rule information. Obviously, the information can't be sent on the blockchain itself. And so we had to essentially design the infrastructure to be able to securely send information in a way that we felt was appropriately designed from data security and privacy standpoint. And then finally, the sunrise issue, which I'm sure you are all familiar with. But again, the challenge that not every jurisdiction has implemented travel rule yet, and travel rule requirements vary very widely across countries. So really, again, important to build a solution that would solve for those challenges and provide flexibility. So diving deeper into how trust actually solves these challenges. So really first is around counterparty identification. So as I mentioned, trust leverages a mechanism that we feel is more accurate and secure than relying on things like blockchain analytics or customer input. Obviously, blockchain analytics is a very important tool in the overall financial crime compliance toolkit. But from a perspective of wanting to be 100% positive that you've been able to identify your counterparty to ensure that you're only ever sending travel rule data to the right counterparty, we wanted to design a system that really gave us that 100% confidence. And so trust essentially provides an API-based bulletin board system where crypto exchanges are able to securely provide the wallet addresses that they own. That way, when a sending institution is looking at a particular blockchain wallet, they're able to query that bulletin board system to determine if that wallet address is registered by another trust member. If that wallet address is registered, the receiving institution that registered it has to actually provide a digital signature to cryptographically prove that they own the wallet address. This is all done in real time. So essentially, receiving institutions are continuously updating addresses that they own on the bulletin board. Therefore, a sending institution is able to reliably identify them ahead of even initiating the on-chain transfer. That bulletin board also provides a set of secure instructions in order to send the travel rule information on a peer-to-peer basis directly from the sending financial institution to the receiving financial institution. So that data exchange is done, again, in real time. It's fully automated, and it is not being passed through any central intermediaries. So while other travel rule solutions often operate in a model where the travel rule information is centralized through their entity, this information is directly sent from point A to point B, from the sending institution to the receiving institution, and the data is not centrally stored on trust, which ultimately reduces the risk that this data becomes a target for hackers. Third, the trust solution also provides a way for trust members to be able to automatically share data in a secure way with non-trust members. So this is a really important development that we built about 1.5 years ago. We call this Flow Trust Hub. And what it allows is for integrated trust members, if they're able to identify a counterparty institution through things like blockchain analytics or customer input, they're able to use trust to essentially securely make that data available to the counterparty VASP. The counterparty VASP receives an email notification and a tokenized link where they can securely access the travel rule information directly from the sending institution. So again, really trying to build in those same security and privacy protections into the Trust Hub flow as well. And then finally, the legal and governance framework that Trust provides helps establish a secure network of VASPs. And so we have an onboarding and ongoing due diligence process that we apply to all members. We've obviously seen travel rule requirements around the world require counterparty due diligence. And so we wanted to really take an efficient and standardized approach here, where as every member joins Trust, they have to go through a review by an independent third party. That way, when a member joins, all of the other members have the confidence that that member has the appropriate privacy and security and compliance controls in place to be able to safeguard that information. So that is a high-level overview of Trust and how it works. I'd just like to emphasize here that travel rules obviously very challenging, and it's continuing to evolve as we see more countries implement requirements. Really, we've designed Trust in a way that is intended to give VASPs the tools that they need to be able to meet the requirements in their specific jurisdiction. The way we see Trust is really almost like the telephone wires to be able to connect to other institutions all around the world in a secure way. We're really continuing to focus on growth here. We do understand that having as many of your counterparties on a particular solution as possible is very useful and ultimately allows you to form those communication channels. So we are very much laser focused on continuing to grow Trust and making it more accessible to VASPs of all sizes in the ecosystem. So we're very excited, really looking at how we can not only add new members, but also strategic partnerships with other providers in the space. This, I think, will be a great transition point for Hannah from 21 Analytics to talk more about how we are collaborating on a partnership of exploring how we can leverage providers like 21 Analytics to make Trust even more accessible to VASPs from an integration standpoint. So with that, I will end my portion, and I'll turn it back over to Maria and Hannah. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Laura, so much. Laura, we have actually 2 questions. Would you like to address them right now, or should we wait until Hannah is finished? Oh,
sure.
3.
Yeah.
All right, so the first, they're actually very difficult questions, so I'm happy you're here to answer them. So how many are actually live and using Trust, not just logo signed? As I was told, it is extremely hard to implement.
Yeah, no. So of the members we talked about, the majority of them are live, and so really what we found is for VASPs joining Trust, there's integration work in order to plug into the APIs, but ultimately what that gets them is a fully automated, real-time solution that is secure in order to actually exchange the travel rule information. We also, through the launch of the Trust Hub solution that I mentioned, have built additional tooling around the integration to make it even easier for members to plug in. We've really seen that as a big boost to aiding our members to actually fully go live. And then Coinbase, as the operator of Trust, we provide extensive technical support to our members in order to help them with their integration process. So we've helped, at this point, dozens and dozens of entities with their integration process. So really VASPs of all sizes and business models. We have large players fully integrated, like the PayPals and the OKXs of the world, as well as very small institutions that we've partnered with to ensure that they have the right support needed for the integration. And then I think this will also be a nice segue into Hannah's portion, but we're also looking at, how can we partner with other providers in this space that are already serving many VASPs from different elements of their travel rule compliance program, including self-hosted wallet ownership, to make the integration easier if they need that.
Then we have another question that I believe could be answered by Hannah during her presentation, because I think it's just kind of like something that you might get constantly as a question. So FATF mandates that you can't rely on independent third parties on due diligence. So isn't that going against that? So I think, Hannah, you might answer that most likely during your presentation. So let's just move over to you, and we will take the third question. We will take it at the end so that Hannah still has time to do her presentation as well. So Hannah, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Maria, thank you, Laura. I cannot screen share, Laura. I think you have to just take yours down.
Sorry,
just
one second.
Okay.
All right, you should be good now.
There, yes. Please let me know if you can see my screen. Oh, good.
Yes, we can see your screen.
Great. Okay, so thank you. So great to be here at CVA, which we have been collaborating for some long years already, and also with Laura and Coinbase. So we've been collaborating successfully for the past couple weeks. And great to be here. See some familiar names. So I guess Trust is and Coinbase are names that you all probably already know quite well. About 21 Analytics, just a quick on us. We are a Swiss technological provider for travel rule. We have been founded in 2020 by security experts out of Switzerland. So what I will talk today is more or less give you a sneak peek of what's coming. Also, between 21 and Trust. And to start with, I'll get into a little bit of context on the travel rule and why this topic is super important. Currently, we are seeing quite some prioritization of this regulatory requirement internationally. There is a very important push happening by the international global standards to implement the travel rule in local jurisdictions, right? So I brought here a bit of numbers. So the number of countries that have implemented the travel rule has been growing quite steeply. In 2024, it almost doubled from 2023, and we expect to see something around 100 by the next update by FHF. If we have CVA members here. They will remember that Switzerland was an early adopter, which might have been a challenge back then. So FATF published the update, I believe, in June, and then by the end of August, FEMA already had this guidance out, basically telling the industry that it was a regulator that was technological neutral. So it means that the obligation of collecting and exchanging data that was already in place for traditional finance also applied to the blockchain uh, business models that were already live in Switzerland. And it went a little bit above what FATF had put out at that time, basically obliging the verification of self-hosted wallets, so that crypto companies would know who owns the wallet before allowing transfers with that blockchain address. And this is exactly also one of the requirements that led into the development of one of our most popular products, which is for the seamless verification of self-hosted wallets, where you can just request verification from a customer with one click. I'll talk a little bit more about that in the end. So I think Maria and Laura already covered quite well the issues and the challenges that the travel brings, and probably those who have joined us here already are quite familiar with that themselves. But basically, it's a very fragmented market. Unfortunately, we have been working to be less fragmented or more interoperable for 5 years now. And this has brought us to a situation where crypto companies usually have a great number of transactions that are pending or blocked, or they cannot find the proper counterparty to go on with the transaction as it was before the travel. Another very important issue, and actually one of the main reasons this company was founded, was the sensitivity of the data that is required to be shared with the travel. And I think Laura already touched on this. But basically, if you have been in the market looking for solutions, you see that the most popular solutions, most popular way to go about it is just basically start a platform where all of your customers can talk to each other through your infrastructure. And we, back in 2020, we thought this was not a sustainable way for the crypto industry to move forward. We would be not only bringing in the intermediary there, but also in the long term, basically build an accumulation of very sensitive data on the hands of specific solution providers that are not directly related to the customers themselves, which leading to decentralization of data would definitely come with the risks of hacks and becoming a very interesting target, right? If you're talking about people's identities, tying those identities to the blockchain addresses, having like physical addresses on the hands of a centralized database could or would definitely bring very a big interest for targets and hacks themselves. And of course, this, as any other AML regulation, brings a burden and friction to the customer, and we wanted to minimize that. I think we already covered this quite extensively, but maybe just to make it a bit clear, is that the originator VASP in other travel solutions, usually they will collect the data, the required data, on their user and also on the beneficiary of that transaction. They will send this to the provider of their choice, and this provider will usually find the counterparty where this data must be forwarded to. Of course, there it comes one of the challenges that we talked about, where the transactions might be disrupted, where if the counterparty VASP is not part of this travel solution. And also, of course, this information is held, processed, and stored by the provider at this point in time. Both 21 Analytics and Trust share a view since the beginning which is a little bit different, is to provide peer-to-peer data exchange. So direct data exchange from one side to the other instead of us sitting in the middle and forwarding this information. And we think this is the key here to this collaboration. An important point, what we are doing as 21 Analytics is giving you the tools to be able to reach and be reachable by your counterparties. So basically teaching your systems on how to write the letter in a proper way so that the other side can read it without us having to tell you who is on the other side and giving it to the other side. So why are Trust and 21 Analytics partnering? That is exactly this point where we have the shared value to keep data protected. Our software has been serving Swiss VASPs and Swiss banks for a long time, and those banks are not willing to share their very sensitive customer data with providers that are elsewhere outside of Europe, for instance, or that have more difficult ways to supervise their data policies and protection. So with us, what we allow them to do is that they hold the travel data at all times within this VASP, be it on the sender or on the receiving side. We are committed to interoperability. We have been doing this for the past 5 years, wanting to build a travel ecosystem that is open and that allows different parties to work together and not pay-to-play kind of platform that if you are not a customer, you cannot. No, actually, with Trust and with 21 Analytics, even if you have your own implementation and you want to transact with firms that are using 21, you can still do it, even if you're not a customer of us. And that we actually think this is a pillar very important for travel compliance to grow sustainably. And finally, we are accelerating travel adoption. I think as Laura took the last question there about the difficulty of implementing trust. I mean, this is a technology that was developed by the biggest, most frequent transactions companies in the world. So they have extensive technical resources that not all smaller crypto companies that that are on today that want to be compliant with the travel will have. And these smaller companies or of different sizes, they could not have the resources to do so. By signing up to 21 Analytics, they would still be able to connect to Trust, but having it already kind of done for them, just connecting to their systems on their side. And I think that goes to show our, well, how 21 Analytics solution works. Basically, we enable you to transact in whichever digital asset, more than 2,000 that are supported within our technology. We also have the solution for self-hosted wallet verification that connects to more than 500. We really strive to have a great user experience for your user here, because this is also a very important part of travel compliance that you don't overlook on your transactions. And of course, with the partnership with Trust, then you are going to be connected to 5 of the top 5 global VASP, but also many others, as Laura has shown you. Finally, how it would work, basically, you would have to go through due diligence and join the network. As Laura mentioned, here the trust is very important, so that the other members of this network can have the confidence to share their users' data with you, because it's not only risky to share with your provider who sits in the middle if you have one, but also make sure that you are sending to a proper entity that can take care of your customers' data just as well as you would. And then you would integrate 21 Analytics in your processes. We have a varying time to that, but basically it makes it kind of brings down the level of difficulty on the technical side, or the level of efforts that you would have to input. And then you can transact with the world's biggest VASPs by connecting to Trust. Thank you. I think we touched on the questions.
Thank you so much, Hannah. Let me just go back to the questions. So you can choose, either Laura or Hannah can answer this one, but if FATF mandates that you can't rely on independent third parties due diligence, so isn't it something that it goes against using trust or using 21 Analytics?
Laura,
Yeah.
do you want to start?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm happy to take that. So really, the due diligence onboarding process that we've built for Trust is essentially what the network has established as the minimum baseline standards from a data security, privacy, as well as a compliance standpoint to actually join and give you that comfort that when you are sending out information, that it is going to be safeguarded appropriately by all of the other members in the network. And so it's not intended to replace a VASP's own obligations to conduct due diligence on their counterparties. I think at the end of the day, again, going back to this idea that like trust is a tool and providing the communication lines for the VASPs to be able to connect to one another in a secure way. It is not, a replacement for the actual internal, compliance, due diligence controls that VASPs need to have. And so, for example, all of the trust members are encouraged and allowed to do their own independent due diligence on their counterparties. I know that in the crypto space can take a variety of different forms. In general, regulators have not been overly prescriptive with how to actually do that counterparty due diligence. And so many exchanges are utilizing things like Wolfsburg style questionnaires to assess their counterparties from an AML and sanction standpoint. They're looking at things like blockchain analytics providers and how they can provide insight to the on-chain risks that a particular counterparty might introduce. They're looking at things like, do those counterparties require KYC for their customers? Do they do sanction screening? How are they licensed and regulated? And so ultimately, although the trust due diligence process has made it more efficient to ensure that everyone in the network is held to the same standards, ultimately, from a due diligence standpoint, where it's required in a particular jurisdiction for a VASP to go beyond that point, they're definitely able and welcome to do so. And then they have that network and those points of communication to be able to work directly with the counterparty VASPs in the network. So really, we've seen this as a very positive thing. We've gotten a lot of good feedback from the members that it makes it easier for them so that they're not having to go out on day one of joining a solution and figure out their own plan for diligence from a data security and privacy standpoint. So, ultimately, our process leverages things like the SOC 2 or ISO 27001 standard, really universally accepted standards around data privacy and security. Again, establishing that baseline so that they don't have to, on a bilateral basis, do that full deep dive on those components of another counterparty's program. So really gotten a lot of good feedback on this piece. We've heard from a lot of members that this is an important reason that they chose to join Trust in the first place, that they're really given that comfort that everyone is held to that same universal standard.
Thank you so much, Laura, for that answer. We have many, many, many questions. We have 11 questions so far. So I will try to go through them because we only have 15 minutes. So we will try to go through them as fast as possible to be able to answer all the questions. They're all very interesting. Thank you so much for sending the questions in and for being so active. So the next question, I believe, can be also answered either by you or by Hannah. Seems to describe that beneficiary are giving IDs. Same for payer. Also, Trevor requires ultimate payer and beneficiary, not just legal owner of the wallet. How is that catered for?
I'm also happy to jump in on that one. So if I understand the question correctly, so in what I described previously about how trust works, the bulletin board essentially facilitates counterparty identification so that if Coinbase is sending a transaction to Kraken, for example, that we're able on the bulletin board to figure out that Kraken, essentially is the other financial institution on the other side. From that point, when the actual travel rule information is shared on a peer-to-peer decentralized basis, the sending institution is essentially encrypting all of the relevant travel rule information, both about the payer and the payee. They are then encrypting that with the public key of the receiving institution and then sending that directly. So from an actual like data requirement standpoint, trust and 21 analytics, all of that relevant and required information is sent directly from the sending institution to the receiving institution. And the actual data payload itself is flexible, where we leverage the IVMS 101 standard, which has been fairly universally accepted in the travel rule space, where if there are additional fields that are required in a certain jurisdiction, those are able to be shared as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Then we have another question. Would you like to take that one, Hannah? The next one?
Which one are we taking?
There are many other protocols like verifiable VASP, Sigma, Code, GTR.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Sure.
because I thought that was more of a question for you, even though it says question to trust, but there are many other protocols, verifiable VASP, Sigma, Code, GTR, and also aggregated like sums up. Do you have plans to integrate directly with either? Because I know you have some ideas on that, as per my understanding from
Sure.
analytics.
From 21's point of view, we have been, as I said in the beginning, working towards interoperability since maybe 5 years, building our own technology that was open and for collaboration with other providers in the space. And actually, we have this TRP, which is an open source, open standard that anyone can just implement, be it VASPs or be it solution providers. So this allows them to connect with the VASPs that are using 21. And we are also openly in collaboration with other solution providers in the market, which is the case with Trust, for instance. And we have been talking also with GTR and other players in the market, because we understand that interoperability is key here, as we have been working towards open standards since the past 5 years. So VASPs are encouraged to look into the solutions available to them, if not with the resources available internally to implement it themselves, then yeah, there are tons of solutions available. Unfortunately, at the moment, not all of them are interoperable, but hopefully we are working towards a more interoperable world.
Thank you so much. That is actually very interesting. I will take quickly the next question. You can correct me if I am saying something that is not right, but what is the payment value threshold for which travel rule is mandated? That depends completely on your regulation, right? So it depends on the regulation where you're at, and the regulator usually tells you what the requirement or the threshold is to comply with travel rule. But as per our experience, it is basically best to comply with travel rule from the start. But if you can add something to that, I would be happy to hear it.
No, as you said, it changes from country to country. In Switzerland, it's at 0, and Europe, it's also at 0. And definitely agree with you on consider this when starting out your business, because it has impact on your operations, definitely.
All right. There are so many questions and they're popping up. I don't even know if we will be able to tackle them all, but what are the advantages of a VASP integrating with 21 Analytics instead of going directly with Trust? You can choose who wants to answer that.
Should I start or you do, Laura, and then I can complement?
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to start. I think for us, and I think this goes to the other question too around interoperability. I think from the trust perspective, at the end of the day, our primary goal is expanding compliance and really helping trust members to reach as many of their counterparties as possible. And as I mentioned before, like we're looking at all different ways of achieving that goal, both from the perspective of just expanding trust organically, bringing in more members, as well as looking at strategic partnerships that help achieve that end goal. So I think for us, you know, because of the fact that with any solution, you're going to have to do an integration. So even with these like software as a solution tools, I think they really sell themselves as this is going to be a very like plug and play integration. It's not going to require complex technical work. I think ultimately that's not true. I think every VASP has to go through the process of integrating travel rule into all of their internal systems. You know, I can definitely speak from the Coinbase perspective that you know, all of the internal components of an integration with travel rule often are far more difficult than actually just plugging into something like Trust or a vendor, because travel rule has to be embedded within your all of your core payment flows, into how you actually initiate on-chain transactions, how you sign for wallet addresses, when you credit funds, if you delay crediting funds, or take any sort of action, and then how the actual travel rule information is fed into all of your different compliance systems and tools. So things like sanction screening, transaction monitoring. That can often be very challenging for VASPs, even large VASPs that have a lot of technical resources. And so, you know, I think over the past year, we've been looking at who are the other networks out there that would help us achieve our goal of expanding counterparty coverage in a way that doesn't sacrifice the very important data security and privacy controls that we've built into Trust. So, you know, when you're essentially building a chain, you're only as strong as your weakest link. And so for us, you know, we are not looking to integrate with providers that are centralizing customer PII data. We see that as really kind of the opposite of our goal. Really, that ultimately puts more customer data at risk. And so when, you know, we've really determined that like we have a fundamental alignment with providers like 21 Analytics because we are aligned on the same principles that we want data to be shared on a peer-to-peer basis, which not only protects, you know, Coinbase's data, Kraken's data, but it really protects the entire crypto ecosystem. And so, you know, I'll turn it over to Hannah, but I think the idea here is for VASPs that do need additional technical support for integrating with Trust and they want to leverage features that we don't currently provide today. So things like, you know, a user interface, dashboards and tooling, self-hosted wallet verification. I think our tools really complement each other very well, and not only provide that integration support, but a suite of other, you know, features that are important to VASP as they think about their holistic travel rule compliance program. But yeah, please jump in, Hannah.
I think you already covered most of it, and exactly, we complement each other very well. As we had the question about the due diligence in the beginning, our solution, for instance, would not put any due diligence and allow anyone to transact. But okay, maybe should we not bring it to at least a base level where you know who you're trusting with this data, and then of course you can build on top of that your decisions on how to evaluate the other points on AML and data security that you would like to have extra to what Trust is already providing, but Trust is bringing everyone to kind of a base level. And that is what 21 Analytics, for instance, didn't have, but what we do have is like an easier onboarding process, as Laura already mentioned. And I tried to touch a little bit on the presentation. It's like there, it is a product or a solution on top of the network. So it really brings the level of effort that your technical team would have to have to implement this and translate this into your systems, because we are already kind of bringing to you what is the basic or the standard way that VASPs will use it. So as Laura mentioned, that this is a not-for-profit initiative by this coalition, right? By this network. So for them, of course, it's more important to make sure that the security standards and the policies are all in place, and that we have a way of rules on how to communicate with each other on a peer-to-peer basis, more than actually build all the user interface and make it easier to use on the day-to-day, which is what we have added as our expertise on this site, right? And as Laura mentioned, the self-hosted wallet to complement and so on.
Thank you, Laura and Hannah, so much. As we only have 3 minutes left, I don't think we can cover all the 10 questions that are missing, but most of them, there are a lot of questions that are related to each other, where it's basically questions about how 21 Analytics works and how it works together with trust and how it can be implemented, how trust is implemented in 21 Analytics. And if you actually have to basically have both integrations into your platform, or if you have to integrate both, or if you can do it through one. And that will cover, I think, almost half of the questions. And then we can move to one last questions. Hopefully you guys can stay a bit longer, maybe 5 minutes longer, and then we will just wrap it up. And I would be very happy if you could share your data, your information, your links with everyone, so that if someone else has an additional question or specific questions about pricing and so on and so forth, they can maybe book a meeting with you directly. All right, thank you. So Hannah, and then I will find a good question for Laura, and then we'll wrap it up.
No, I think both of us can take that last one, and then we're gonna be a bit out of time. But maybe I'll start, just Laura. How to integrate? Talk to us. Talk to 21. We will help you, guide you on what you have to do. But basically, that was one of the slides, the 1, 2, 3 slide there that I showed. Basically, you need to do the due diligence with trust. You must join as a network member. And then you would be able to connect to trust via the 21 Analytics software without having to do any technical integrations on your site. So basically, it is this is how the integration works, kind of bringing access to the trust network to you via 21 Analytics in an easy way. Laura, maybe you want to add anything?
No, I mean, I think that really covers it. I think ultimately, VASPs have options in terms of, like, obviously we've had a lot of members come and directly integrate with trust. I think this new offering, to Hannah's point, will allow a VASP to kind of partner with both of us, where the actual integration can be done in partnership with 21 Analytics that will help plug that VASP into the trust protocol. Ultimately, I think the way we've envisioned the partnership is that those VASPs would still become trust members. They would still go through the onboarding due diligence process and become a member to kind of the central governance framework. But ultimately, have that option if they need the additional technical support and plugging into the different features that 21 offers. So we're really excited about this. I know there's obviously been a lot of discussion around interoperability and partnerships, and this, I think, is a big step forward in kind of joining forces and making travel more accessible to VASPs all over the world. And again, I'll just emphasize, I really do think that the model that we've taken from a trust and 21 Analytics standpoint is very different than the other vendors in this space, which operate as, ultimately for-profit ventures. They are looking to make money off of travel rule compliance. We have done this because ultimately, Coinbase, we are a crypto exchange with our own travel rule obligations at the end of the day. We understand firsthand the complexities and the difficulties of complying with travel rule, not just in one country, but when you're operating across dozens of countries and with dozens, hundreds, thousands of different counterparties. So, we really do bring a vast perspective. And I think what has really brought trust and 21 together is our shared principles around data security and privacy, and preventing travel rule from becoming a systemic risk in the crypto space through these centralized vendors.
Thank you so much to both of you. Unfortunately, we're out of time. I would love to take many more questions. There was just one question that I would like to finalize this with, and it's about how the trust framework, or just in general, how this travel rule solutions allow regulators to verify compliance. And in addition to that, are there any specific requirements you have when you allow someone to be a member in trust? Like what do you check to make sure that they are actually governmental compliance in their own country?
Sure. So the way trust is designed is only the actual financial institutions that have travel rule obligations are integrated with the solution. So external regulators, law enforcement are not able to directly integrate with trust. They ultimately, regulators, law enforcement are engaging directly with the VASPs that they actually have jurisdiction over. So you can think of this as if your organization is going through an audit or an exam with your particular regulator, your regulator would ask you to show evidence of your own, compliance with the travel rule for the specific requirements that apply to you. So they would look at, you would kind of walk them through your end-to-end travel rule compliance program, just like you would your, transaction monitoring system or your sanction screening. And then you would demonstrate, here are the kind of policies and procedures we have around travel rule. Here's the tool that we actually use to exchange the information, something like Trust and N21. And then if there are specific data requests that the government or the regulator would like to see in order to actually test your ability to comply, the VASPs themselves would have access to all of that data that they've either sent out or received because they're actually a party to that transaction. They would be able to make that information available to the relevant regulator. So again, none of the actual travel rule PII data, the customer information, none of that is centrally stored on Trust or 21 Analytics. It's all done peer-to-peer. And so ultimately, regulators are working directly with organizations, just like they would in any example of using any travel rule provider. They're not going to the travel rule provider to say, show us that Coinbase is complying. They're working directly with the VASPs that they oversee.
Wonderful. Thank you. Hannah, would you like to add something?
No, which is a good thing, right? I don't think we want the regulators to be able to, supervise via RegTech providers. I think
Agreed.
yeah, that's
And thank you
the
so
goal.
much. I think that's a great closing line. So thank you everyone for being here. Thank you for the last 48 people who stayed until the end. This is amazing. Please, Hannah and Laura, share your information on the chat so that if you need any information on them, if you need to know anything about some additional information about 21 Analytics or about Trust, please contact them directly. And thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Hannah, and thank you, Laura, for your time. It was an amazing talk today. I really enjoyed it and learned a whole bunch more than what I knew before. So thank you, guys. Bye-bye. Have a wonderful day.